Okay, welcome back. Happy New Year's Eve. Today we're continuing our BCBA exam review. We're going through a full BCBA exam, question by question, breaking down each question, how you should think about it when you take your actual exam. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. If you are enjoying my videos, that really helps me and I appreciate it. If you're looking for our study materials, look no further than bcbastudy.com. We offer a full practice exam, a full task list study guide, that is the 5th edition. And then of course our combo pack includes both. If you purchase the combo pack and the practice exam, you receive all future practice exams for free. So our second practice exam is on the way. Once it's released, I will send you that at no extra charge. You can take these practice exams as many times as you want, and it allows you unlimited email access to me for any questions, plus our videos, of course. So check those out. We're also starting a new live tutoring and review service every Sunday on Twitch. So please check out that link, that Twitch TV link for our schedule. You can go there, you can follow me. Every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, I'll be on Twitch for an hour or two, answering questions, reviewing the task list at no charge. So be sure to check that out. I think it's going to be a really fun group exercise. Any questions, please come with those. We'll be answering them, like I said, for an hour or two. It's going to be a fun thing. So check that out. As always, any other questions or comments, please let me know. Send me an email or leave a comment below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, let's keep working hard, keep studying hard, get to our questions. Question 141. A teacher is struggling to control a student in her class. She designs a behavior plan that targets the maladaptive behavior. After a week, the behavior is reduced. The teacher believes that her behavior plan worked, but in actuality, the student is now receiving reinforcement at home for having good days at school. What occurred in relation to the teacher believing her plan worked? Okay, so this question is asking about the teacher's thought process, essentially, right? What the teacher believes about her intervention. The teacher believes her behavior plan worked, her intervention is effective. But what do we know? We know in actuality, the behavior plan wasn't effective. It was actually what was occurring at home. So when you believe that your treatment was effective, what is that called? Is that a type 1 error? Is that type 2 error? Is that behavior contrast, or is that a mental construct? Well, it's not a mental construct, okay? This has an actual applied definition, okay, in ABA, so we can eliminate D. Behavior contrast isn't occurring because behavior is being reduced in both settings. Behavior contrast occurs when behavior reduces in one setting but increases in another. In this case, behavior is reduced in both settings. Okay, so behavior contrast is not occurring. That leaves us with type 1 errors and type 2 errors. What is a type 1 error? A type 1 error is a false positive. Okay, when you believe your intervention is effective, okay, when you believe it's made the change, right? That's a type 1 error. It's a false positive. A false negative is the opposite. Okay, you believe your intervention is ineffective when in reality it is effective. So is the teacher experiencing a type 1 error or a type 2 error? Well, she's experiencing a type 1 error, a false positive. She believes her behavior plan is the cause of the student's behavior being reduced. In actuality, the student is receiving reinforcement at home. So it's not her plan that is working, but it's the reinforcement at home that is working. The teacher just committed a type 1 error. So make sure you understand a type 1 error is a false positive, a type 2 error is a false negative, okay? No tricks really, you just need to kind of remember that, okay, and memorize that. 142, pretty easy graphing question. How would you describe the trend of data for days 1 through 4? All right, so very straightforward trend question. We know on our basic graphing questions, we're gonna look at trend, we're gonna look at variability, and we're gonna look at level. Okay, how do we describe trends? We typically describe trends as increasing, as decreasing, or as having no trend. So in this question, we need to know data points 1 through 4. So we look at 1 through 4, the very beginning, okay? Looks like some sort of baseline data based on this gap in between 4 and 5. Okay, we know it's frequency of self-injury. Based on our trend, what do we see? Is it increasing, decreasing, or is there no trend? Well, if we look at our data, we start at 6, we move to 7, 7, 7, okay? So although it increases one data point at the very beginning, it then levels out, okay? So how would you describe this trend? You would probably describe this as not having a trend at all, okay? If we can assume this is baseline data, this would be called steady state, okay? Meaning we are at a steady state with no trend. That is where you want to be ideally in baseline. At that point, we can now move to our intervention, which we did here. How would you describe the trend of 5, 6, 7, 8? You would describe that trend as clearly decreasing as our data points continue to fall. Very easy graphing question, okay, which is fine, right? We're trying to understand the concepts here as we learn. The easy concepts, we really want to make sure we have hammered home, okay? Because there are a lot of questions on the BCBA exam. I would say about 100 of those aren't overly difficult, in all honesty, okay? So 100 of these questions, you're going to be able to answer fairly easily. But it requires you to know the basic concepts down pat. You need to be fluent in these terms and definitions, okay? Even things like trend, variability, and level, which seem like elementary stuff at this point for a lot of you guys, you still have to know that and you still have to understand those concepts. So if you get asked a question about them on the exam, you can answer that question very rapidly and you can move on to the harder questions. So 142, again, are data points 1 through 4. There is no trend. 143, 2 weeks after an intervention begins, you conduct a full observation on a session with one of your clients. You request that the RBT run different interventions and you collect data on how the intervention is being carried out. What are you most likely assessing? What are you trying to determine here? You're conducting a full observation on this session, okay? So meaning you're really there looking at all the ins and outs of the session, and you're requesting that the RBT run these different interventions as you collect data on how the intervention is being carried out. So most likely what you want to see is this RBT running it appropriately, okay? Are you assessing IOA? No, okay, IOA, we need at least 2 people interpreting this RBT's ability to run this data, okay? And you don't necessarily assess IOA, okay? You can conduct inter-observer agreement, right? You're not necessarily assessing it here though, okay? Because it's just you collecting data on the RBT. There's nothing to compare your data against. There's nobody else collecting data. It's simply just you, okay? So we can eliminate A. What about external validity? What does external validity say? External validity says that our interventions are generalized, okay? They work outside of the learning environment. We are conducting observations within the learning environment. We are not looking at external validity necessarily in this scenario. What about internal validity? Internal validity says our intervention is the cause for the behavior change, okay? Again, we're not looking at whether or not our interventions are working. We're simply looking on how is the intervention being carried out, okay? We designed our intervention a certain way to be conducted a certain way. We need to be sure our intervention is implemented, okay, as we designed it. Therefore, we are assessing treatment integrity. Is your RBT running your interventions as designed? That's what you want to determine here. Because what can happen? As RBTs, okay, go through interventions as it carries on, treatment drift can occur where that treatment originally looked one way, but is now being implemented another. So as a BCBA, it's very important that you do this quite often. Assess integrity of your treatment. If you don't, treatment drift will occur, and we're going to start getting all kind of wonky variables and behavior changes. So in this case, you're collecting data on how the intervention is being carried out. That is the key phrase here, being carried out. We are assessing treatment integrity. Rashid is tired of his son being unable to sleep at night. He decides that on Monday, he will introduce a reinforcement intervention, attempt to manipulate the motivation operation of staying up late, and put the behavior on extinction. To Rashid's surprise, his intervention works. Now Rashid wants to know what intervention is responsible for maintaining the behavior. He should conduct a what? All right, so Rashid takes it upon himself to design these interventions, which is great. They're successful, but now we have a problem because we introduced 3 interventions all at once. Well, what's effective? Which one is effective? What can we remove? What should we continue? Rashid wants to know that. If Rashid wants to know what part or what intervention is effective, what should he use? Should he use a parametric analysis? What does a parametric analysis look at? It looks at the dosage. It looks at the amount. So it doesn't separate all the different components. It takes one individual component and says, okay, how much of that component do we need? For example, if we look at reinforcement, we're only looking at reinforcement. Our parametric analysis is going to ask the question, how much reinforcement is enough, is appropriate? It's the dosage. Rashid wants to look at each component, right? He wants to look at reinforcement. He wants to look at the motivating operations, and he wants to look at extinction. So if he wants to look at all the components, he's going to do a what? A component analysis. Which one is effective? Which one is maintaining these behavior changes? That's what we want to know. D looks like our answer. Always read all of your answer choices when you're studying and when you take the exam. It's very important. Understanding why wrong answers are wrong when you're studying is going to make you better at the exam. It's going to make you quicker at the exam, okay? So C, integrity check. Is he looking for some sort of treatment integrity? No, not necessarily. He just wants to know, hey, what intervention is responsible? What's working, what isn't? He's not looking to see how each one is being carried out and if it's being carried out correctly. And then D, a baseline assessment. He's way past baseline. We are on intervention. All right, so he does not need to conduct a baseline assessment. Now he might withdraw back to baseline. Okay, that's one possibility, but he's not conducting an initial baseline assessment. Rashid, the best answer here is conducting a component analysis. Extinction is a powerful behavior change tool and can be implemented in several different ways. Which of the following answer choices represents extinction? Okay, another easy question, right? So again, all the questions on the exam aren't going to be overly difficult. All right, I think that's a big misconception about the exam where everybody thinks every question is going to be a massive challenge. It's just not the case. There are a lot of questions on the exam. They're going to test your knowledge, but a lot of the questions are going to be quite easy. Again, I think 100 of these questions, at least on the exam, you're going to be able to answer very easily. Don't overthink the questions. Okay, take what they give you, apply your knowledge. As long as you prepared and studied, you're going to be fine. So for example, an extinction question should be a layup for you, right? You know what extinction is, withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. You should be able to answer this question fairly easily, right? So let's look. Which of the following represents extinction? A, Anthony ignores the client whenever they are engaging in the behavior of interest. Do we ignore the client during extinction? No, we ignore the behavior. So that's a no, right? Ignoring the client is not extinction. We ignore the behavior, okay? If, of course, that is the type of extinction we're running. B, Tony does not allow his client a chance to engage in the target behavior. That's response blocking. Response blocking is not extinction. In order to conduct proper extinction, there needs to be an opportunity, okay, to engage in the target behavior. Response blocking prevents that, therefore B does not best represent extinction. C, Bill delivers reinforcement non-contingently throughout the day to abolish the motivation to engage in the target behavior. Extinction, of course, is withholding reinforcement. C, Bill is delivering reinforcement. That, of course, is not going to be what we're looking for. That leaves us with D. Joey no longer delivers reinforcement for when his client asks for a break. Obviously, D is our best answer, okay? Previously, the client would be given some sort of reinforcement when asking for a break. Now, Joey no longer delivers that reinforcement. The best answer choice for representing extinction is D. 146, you are driving on the interstate going over the speed limit. You notice a police car parked on the side of the road. As you approach the car, you slow down to below the speed limit. What does the police car function as? Okay, what is the police car signaling to you? You're driving on the interstate over the speed limit. When you see a police car, what do we know is now available? Punishment, right? If you're over the speed limit, okay, you can receive punishment for speeding. That cop car is signaling punishment is now available. Okay. You might have the motivation to go the speed limit, okay, or you might not, but until you see an actual cop car, it doesn't matter because punishment isn't available, right, until you see that cop car. So the cop car, the police car, functions as what? Does it function as an SD for reinforcement? Well, no, right? Your behavior is decreasing, you're slowing down, okay? And of course, we know that a police car is going to provide punishment for speeding. So SD for punishment, yes, right? That police car is now signaling to us there's punishment available for our current behavior. It's not a prompt, right? It is the actual SD, okay? And what about a consequence? Not a consequence, it's gonna be an antecedent, okay, to you slowing down. The cop car signals punishment is now available. Which of the following does not represent a behavior as far as behavior analysts are concerned? What is a pretty standard rule for behavior analysts when determining what is and isn't a behavior? Well, of course, it's anything an organism does. And also we have our dead man's test. So you can ask yourself those two questions. Is the organism doing something? Can a dead person do it, right? Typically we say if a person is just lying down, lying still isn't necessarily a behavior, okay, because a dead man can do it. If somebody else is doing it to you, again, that's not a behavior because it's not anything an organism does, okay? Internal functions and processes are also not behaviors, okay? We acknowledge private events, right? Like thinking, okay? But being hungry is not a behavior, okay? The client is hungry after school. That's not a behavior, right? B, you're near a puddle and get splashed by a passing car. You getting splashed is not you doing anything, okay? That's just something that happened to you. Again, not a behavior, right? A dead person can get splashed by a passing car. Although a dead person can't be hungry, right? That's still not a behavior, right? It's just internal mechanism that's just happening, right? You're not actually doing anything, okay? You're just hungry, right? Same thing with the puddle. You're not doing anything, you're just getting splashed. And then someone punches you in the face at a bar. Maybe you were doing something before that, okay? But them punching you in the face is not your behavior, okay? Now, that other person, okay, that's a behavior, but when we're just talking about you getting punched in the face, something happening to you is not a behavior, right? A dead person can get punched in the face, okay? Doesn't necessarily mean it's a behavior. So which of the following does not represent a behavior? All the above. Now, they're going to be very picky on the exam about identifying behaviors that are observable and measurable, okay? Because they want you to pick socially valid behaviors. They want you to pick the right behaviors. So it's very important that you understand what they're looking for. Stuff happening to you, okay, is not a behavior. Anything an organism does. Behavior is all about doing, right? These public events of observable and measurable doing, okay? Very important. Remember the dead man's test. Remember, behavior is anything an organism does. Which person said we should study the relationship between the stimuli and the response and focused on SR behaviorism? So be careful here, right? We're looking at stimulus response behaviorism. So we can immediately eliminate Skinner, right? Because he was radical. He liked SRS behaviorism. We have Watson, Pavlov, and Einstein. Well, Einstein was not a behaviorist, okay? Very smart guy, did a lot of good things, but he was not a behaviorist. So we can eliminate Einstein. Leaves us with Watson and Pavlov. Now, Watson and Pavlov were both looking at classical conditioning, right? However, who was the behaviorist? Well, Watson was, right? Remember the little Albert experiment with the bunny rabbit and the little baby. Watson was focused on the behaviorism aspect of SR, okay? So when asked about methodological behaviorism, okay, think Watson. Pavlov was about classical conditioning. Watson, SR, methodological behaviorism. And then Skinner, okay, radical behaviorism. 149, Kobe, a behavior analyst, is explaining to a parent why their child with a learning disability is having difficulty in school. The child has a lot of trouble reading long passages. The behavior analyst explains that because the child has a learning disability, they have trouble reading. What type of logic is this? Okay, so very common, right? Somebody has an issue, right? We have a client and they have a behavior or they can't do something. And the first thing many people say is, well, they can't do this because they have this disorder. What ends up happening, right? Well, when you say you have a disorder, so you can't do this, what are you doing? We're just going in circles, right? In this case, the child with a learning disability, okay, they can't read. Why can't they read? Well, they have a learning disability. Oh, well, they have a learning disability, therefore they can't read. We're just going in a circle. We're not identifying any true causes, any true effects. The cause is the effect, right? The cause of the not being able to read, okay, is the learning disability. The effect of the learning disability is not being able to read. Circular reasoning, okay, is something we want to avoid. We want to look at other environmental options. So what type of logic is this? Behaviorism? No, behaviorism. We're looking at the environment. We're looking at antecedents and consequences if we're dealing with radical behaviorism, which we are, right? Operants, okay? Sound, it's not sound logic, okay? It's not radical logic, it is circular reasoning. And then 150, what branch of behavior analysis develop technologies of behavior change that are related to socially significant behaviors? All right, that is the key, socially significant behaviors. Who and what branch develops these technologies? A, conceptual analysis of behavior. Conceptual analysis of behavior deals with theories, deals with ideas, deals with concepts, okay? But we're not actually looking to apply these things in a setting. B, applied behavior analysis. Absolutely, right? We take what we know from our experimental analysis of behavior, which is working in labs, typically with animals, okay? We take those and start applying them to human subjects for socially significant behaviors. That's what we're doing, right? Applied behavior analysis. And the behavior service delivery is the implementation of these behavior change technologies. Okay, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great, great, great new year. Please be safe. Any questions or comments, leave them below. bcbastudy.com for all of our study materials, our practice exam, our 5th edition task list study guide, our combo pack are all available now. And then, of course, we will be starting our tutoring and reviews on Twitch every Sunday. Follow me for all updates on schedules. As always, work hard, study hard. See you soon.